I am an occupational therapist. I am the owner of Threshold Therapeutic. I'm going to go ahead and start showing my slides because there's some information on there that you can see as well. Let me find the right button to click and then we'll get there. Here we go. So I'll introduce myself here as we go through. If there are questions, Kian, I'll have you interrupt me because it's not letting me show the chat box and the screen share at the same time. I've got a couple of screens going, but it minimizes that. So please feel free to interrupt me if it looks like some questions are popping up.
Yes, and if you don't mind me saying so, everyone, we will have questions at the end, but if you have questions relevant to what Maddie's talking about, go ahead and drop it in the chat box and we'll get her to answer those questions for you, okay?
Absolutely, yeah, it's not going to let me look at the chat box while I'm sharing a screen, so please feel free to just interrupt me if something pops up. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Today's presentation is on home safety. When I'm doing presentations like this for larger groups, I never quite know what stage of life people in the audience are in. So the way I've framed this presentation is to kind of try to capture everyone. So when we're talking about home safety, we're going to talk about things that are beneficial for everyone to look at in the home. Our goal is to, for the most part, is to stay safe in our home as long as possible. So I'm going to try to capture people who are not in the phase of life yet where they're making any modifications to the home, but a mindset in if you're thinking about making changes to prepare for the future, what things you should be looking for. And those who are in that stage where we're starting to notice we might need to make some changes, adapt a few things, some options that you have. So basically, we're going to be doing a virtual walkthrough of a home today. We're going to go through every area of the house, talk about things to think about, some tips and tricks as we go through, and how different modifications may be helpful for different things. So let me see. There we go. So this is me. Again, my name's Mattie Ablitz. This is my family. I have two little ones at home. I have Ezra and Aria. Although these pictures are a little outdated, they're 6 and 8 now, and that's my husband, Brian. We live in Matthews. My company, as I had mentioned, is Threshold Therapeutic. We cover the Charlotte region and slightly beyond. I'm down in Fort Mill a little bit. We go down into Monroe and Waxhaw and Mint Hill. Things that we cover in our practice, my practice is a mobile outpatient company. So we provide occupational and physical therapy services to adults and seniors in their homes. We do not have a clinic space. We are mobile only. We bill Medicare under Medicare Part B, which is considered outpatient. We just happen to make house calls. So we are outpatient therapists, but we bring the outpatient experience to you in the homes. My personal specialty is on home safety and accessibility assessments and self-care training. So I would do a home safety assessment and then provide training on any modifications that we had recommended during that, and then the caregiver training that goes along with those as well. We also offer traditional rehabilitation, so PT, OT, hopefully soon to be speech therapy. I'm still working on getting a speech therapist, but working on balance and strength and motor control and all of those things for rehab in the home. Assistance with adaptive equipment, so walkers, wheelchairs, hospital beds, consulting and helping with obtaining those through insurance. I mentioned self-care and caregiver training, and then also wellness programming for people who have been discharged from therapy but still want some one-on-one coaching and personal training in their home. Usually I start with what is an occupational therapist. Then often I will go into someone's home and introduce myself as the occupational therapist, and they'll tell me, Mattie, why are you here? I don't need a job, I'm retired. Occupational therapy, not the best named profession, but they go by occupation is the occupation of daily living skills. So the occupation itself of living. I define occupational therapists as professional clinical problem solvers with a focus on function. So my focus when I'm working with someone is there anything that is hindering you from being able to complete any self-care task in your home? So if there's something that's preventing you from doing something safely or independently, an occupational therapist is trained to figure out a way to solve that problem. We do that in a number of ways. We can either solve that problem by modifying your environment, by introducing some adaptive equipment or some home modifications, Or we can solve that problem by using a rehab technique where we would do stretching or exercise or training to regain the skill. So for example, putting your socks on after a knee replacement, it's hard because we can't bend our knee quite as well. So we might use adaptive tools at first until we've done enough stretching and strengthening to make sure that you're independent with that task again. So in summary, in OT, we're there to solve whatever problems you're having at home that are making things more difficult for you. We use the term activities of daily living a lot. That's what my profession is formed around, is what we call ADL. This is anything that you need to do to take care of yourself. So this is bathing, showering, dressing, shaving, brushing your teeth, going to the bathroom, eating. This also includes home management tasks. So meal preparation, household cleaning, paying your bills, leisure activities. Insurance recognizes leisure as an activity of daily living. So if there's a leisure task you're having a hard time doing, I spend time with people in their gardens, working on adaptive techniques for people who like to knit and don't have the fine motor control anymore. Those are all things that we can look at and frame our intervention around. So if you see ADL thrown around, that's what that term means. For the perspective that this presentation is framed around, I am going in with a framework of aging in place, which means aging in place, simply stated, is the ability for an individual to remain and thrive safely in their home for as long as possible throughout the aging process. So when we go through this home safety presentation, my mindset is, how do we make sure that your home is absolutely set up to take care of you all the way through your aging process? Why are we thinking about this now? 60% of falls, research shows, occur inside your home. Home is where we spend the majority of our time. We need to make sure the home is set up safely. Improving the safety of your home can drastically reduce the risk of falls and injury for adults over the age of 65. Home modifications can also assist with reducing joint strain and improve the efficiency of your daily routine. So even if you are getting through your daily routine just fine, and not having any major difficulties, but you have some chronic back pain, there are things that can be done to either modify your home or your routine so that we're not having so much strain, to make sure that you are set up to reduce any issues that may come along in the future. Preparations made for aging in place can improve the quality of life at any functional level. A lot of times I'll talk with people and they'll say, oh, we're not there yet. We don't need to be thinking about those things yet. I can tell you, I just moved into a house a few years ago that happens to have comfort height toilets. I am, a young mom in her 30s, and I am very well benefiting from that modification of that higher toilet, even though it's not a necessity yet. So I always tell people, don't be afraid to make modifications early, even if you don't need them, because when that day comes, when something is needed, it makes things so much easier if you have already thought through that process and done that ahead of time, rather than, being more in crisis mode and trying to last minute scramble to get things set up. So it's a great thing to think about in the future. It's only going to be helpful now. So planning ahead, this also involves some family conversations, not only thinking about your house, but thinking about your future plans. We're not going to dwell here too long, but you also want to start thinking about what are your long-term goals for yourself, your family, and your spouse. Everyone's process is different. Everyone's Parkinson's looks different. Everyone has different symptoms. People experience things at different intervals. So there's no way to predict exactly what your path is going to look like. But if you know what your plan is, there are options, no matter what you choose, that are going to help prepare you for the process that you are in right now, wherever life takes you. So things like, are you planning on staying in your home? Are we thinking about aging in place? Are you thinking about downsizing or transitioning to a retirement community if that fits your personality? Are you planning on staying with family? There are resources, like I said, at every level. If you're in the home, if you're in a community, if you're living with family, to make sure that whatever environment you choose is going to be set up for you for the long term. So here we get to the meat of our presentation. Here's our home safety assessment. So a home safety assessment is a comprehensive evaluation of your home. I've also done them in apartments. I've done them in retirement communities. Wherever you call your home, this applies. And the goal is to improve the safety of whoever is living there. These are typically completed by a licensed occupational therapist who are trained in home safety and home modifications. Recommendations can look a number of ways. These can be recommendations for adaptive equipment. We may have some recommendations for modifying your home, or we may recommend a different way of completing a task. We call this an adaptive strategy. We might not need to modify anything, we might not need a piece of equipment, but if you think about moving your body this way or using this posture instead, or sequencing something different, it may have a long-term benefit for you. So some terms that we're going to be throwing around a little bit, we'll define quickly. The first is adaptive equipment. This is any device or piece of equipment that's designed to help improve safety or independence for a functional task. So this includes wheelchairs, walkers, canes, bed rails, grab bars, reachers, shower chairs, hospital beds. All of those things are considered pieces of adaptive equipment. So anything that we would purchase or obtain, or sometimes we can make those pieces of adaptive equipment ourselves. A home modification is going to be any change to the structure, layout, setup of your home with the intention of improving safety, access, or function. So these can be big renovations, or these can be small, no-cost interventions. So the big modifications would be things like having a doorway widened, or removing a threshold, or ripping out a bathtub and installing a walk-in shower, putting in a ramp. Small modifications might be little things like changing the height of your bed, or reorganizing a closet to make it more accessible, or just changing the layout of your furniture to make walking paths more clear. So those would be some small modifications, and we'll talk through those here in a moment. So we'll get started with this part. This is our do-it-yourself home safety preparedness checklist. There is also a PDF version that I sent to Kiana that can be accessed, or that we can send out to you if you want your own checklist to walk through your own home with after this presentation. We're going to start with the entrance to the home. So this begins our walkthrough. If you do have questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. Kiana will let me know if there's a question that pops up to answer those. If your questions are very, very specific to a certain area of your house or related to a certain impairment, I will do my best to answer those. But sometimes that can be really hard if I can't see the environment that we're in and I haven't met you yet. So I will do my best to answer as best we can, but sometimes that recommendation might be that it would really be best to have either myself or another OT come out to the house and to do that evaluation. Just as this isn't in the presentation, but just as a reference for you, for someone to come in and do a home safety assessment, if you are currently having difficulty with something in the home, in most cases that is covered by insurance, so Medicare can be billed for that assessment. If you're someone who's just thinking ahead about aging in place, not really having any trouble right now, that's not something insurance generally covers. We have to define it as being medically necessary at this current moment. But there are, insurance options, and there are private pay options for both of those, and those are things that we could discuss over the phone. So with the entrance to the home, the first thing you want to think about is, how do you get into your house? How do you get in and out? So things to think about are there a clear direct path from your car to the front door, or wherever you prefer to come into the house? Is that pathway clear? If the path is outside, is the surface even? Are there any obstacles? Is it loose gravel? Are there pavers that maybe wobble under your feet when you step on them? Is it slippery? Does the texture of the ground change with the weather? Is it a dirt path that gets really muddy when it's raining? Are they slate? Are they pieces of slate that get slippery? Does it get icy when it's cold? Also, is your path well lit? You're going to see this lighting theme as we go through. Lighting becomes really, really, really important, especially when you're out and about, early hours of the morning or late at night, to make sure that you can see where you're stepping in terms of fall risk. And then stairs. Are there stairs that you must use to get into your home? How many stairs are there? Are they sturdy? That's really, really something to take into consideration. If you already know that every time you step on the second step, it wobbles a little bit under your foot, it's a great idea to go ahead and get that taken care of. Don't let those problems linger too long, because they usually turn into much larger problems later and can result in an injury. If there are more than 1 to 2 stairs, is there a handrail? And is there a handrail on one side? Is there one on both sides? If you have an injury on, you have a torn rotator cuff or you have arthritis, does it affect one side or the other? You want to make sure that there's a rail on what you would consider your strong side. Also, are those stairs lit? We really, really want to make sure those stairs are lit. And checking the surface. Are they slippery? Do you have a firm foothold on those stairs? So we're going to look at a couple things that you can think about with entryways. So if you are planning ahead or need to make a modification to your entryway, so you want to consider the material of the pathway. So if you're thinking about putting in a new entryway, you really want to think about what material you choose. If you were to ever need a mobility device, a walker, a power chair, a wheelchair, would whatever device you use move easily on that path? So if you're putting in a walkway, a pea gravel walkway might not be the best decision, because if you ever did need a walker, it's not something that's going to move well on that path. You can see in one of the pictures at the bottom, there is a paver and then gravel and then paver and then gravel. That's a great place for a wheelchair wheel to get stuck in the near future. So little things to think about. Is there a small step that you have to come in to get into the door, or to come in through the basement? Are there handrails available? There's different types of handrails available that can be installed for any number of things. On that bottom corner, you can see these little black mats. Those are threshold ramps. So if you have to step up and over a tiny threshold to get through your door, they make these handy little rubber mats that can help bridge the gap. So if you ever did need to use a walker or a wheelchair, we're not getting caught and we're not catching our toes on those little thresholds. So that's doorways and entryways. The flooring in your house. You want to make sure that you look at the floor in every room, and to make sure that you have a clear path. So things that you want to look for on the floors. You're going to see lighting a lot. You're going to see this word clutter a lot. Really want to check those floors to make sure that there is nothing on the floor that doesn't really need to be on the floor. We want to make sure that as you're walking, nothing is in danger of getting in the way. Nothing's going to roll out under your feet. We just want to reduce any tripping or fall hazard. It's rare when someone has a fall that it was something, I'm trying to find my words. Usually when people have a fall, it's something unexpected happened. We tripped over something, we turned a little bit too quickly. If we can eliminate a lot of those what ifs, our fall risk dramatically decreases. So clutter is one of those that really, really increases those risk for falls. Other things to keep track of are excess furniture. So you want to make sure that you have an adequate path to walk through each room, and also consider you may not be using a cane, a walker, a wheelchair now, but if that day ever came and you had a device, would you be able to get through the living room? Would you be able to make it through the dining room? Could you make it around your kitchen with that device if it were ever needed? Throw rugs. Usually when I go into someone, they were like, I had a therapist come in and she told me I had to throw out all my throw rugs. Don't you dare tell me that. I don't have a hated relationship with throw rugs, but it depends on what they're made of. So you want to make sure that if you are someone who has throw rugs throughout your house, we want to make sure that they're thin. Higher risk is associated with throw rugs that are really big and squishy, that you might catch your toe. If the ends of those rugs over time are starting to curl up, we might want to make a look at a way to be able to secure those down. And also, if that throw rug slides under your feet when you step under it, you might be able to catch that now. But over time, our balance responses start to slow down a little bit. We want to make sure that we've secured that mat with something non-slip underneath so that it's not sliding under your feet. If you have pets that like to rampage through the house, they may be kicking up the ends of your throw rugs and that you may not have been aware of them. So you just want to keep an eye on your favorite throw rugs over time, because there may be a way that we might just be able to modify them so that they can remain safe and stay there. Cords. Want to keep an eye on power cords. Unfortunately, our houses have more and more and more power cords as we grow, because we've got our lift chairs and our lamps and televisions and electronics, and all those things need plugged in. So we would just want to make sure, if there's a way to make that happen, that all of our cords are secured together and that they run along the wall. We want to try to avoid cords that are going to run along the middle of a floor. Even if you've hidden them under a rug or you put something over top of them, toes can still catch over those. So sometimes it's just a matter of getting a longer cord so that you can either tack it up over a door frame, and we'll see that in a second. Floor transitions. We want to make sure that there are smooth transitions between different types of flooring. So if you have linoleum in your kitchen and you step into your den or your living room and all of a sudden it's a really high pill or fluffy carpet, transitions can be something where wheels of walkers or wheelchairs get stuck, toes can get tripped up on. Even if you have wood floor, if you're walking through a doorway, there might be a transition where there's a strip of wood that's a little bit taller. Little things like that, slowly over time can be more troublesome than they are now. So it's a thing to keep your eye on if you're looking at making some modifications to your home. And so I'll show you some images here when you're thinking about planning ahead with your flooring, if you're thinking about renovating or making some changes. A lot of people will ask me, they'll say, Mattie, I'm renovating. Do I go with hard floors or carpet? There's no hard, fast rule. Lots of people say, oh, someone said that I need to have all hard floors so that I'm not tripping on the carpet or so that my wheelchair doesn't get stuck on the carpet. In some cases, that's true, but hardwood floors, if you spill something on them, get very slippery very quickly. If you have pets that shed a lot, pet hair on a hard floor can be a really slick surface if you're walking around in bare feet or socks on your feet. If there's a spill on the floor, the hard floors are a lot more slippery. If grease gets on the floor, household cleaner gets on the floor, that can be really slippery and it can be hard to get that surface up. So hardwood or linoleum or tile can be beneficial, but we also have to keep our eye on those hard floors too. Also, if you have all hard floors, that also makes people want to cover those hard floors with lots of throw rugs. So we've kind of traded one problem for another. So it's something that you want to think about in the back of your mind if you're thinking of hard floors is, are you going to feel the need to want to put mats on the floor so that you have something softer under your feet? If you are going for carpet, I think about getting very low pill carpet. Think about the carpet when you like go to a hotel conference room. It's carpet, but it doesn't feel squishy, but you still have some traction under your feet. That's the type of carpet that I would go for. If you're putting an underlayment under your carpet that's really, really squishy, that does make it harder in the long run for your balance when you've got something moving under your feet. Thicker carpets, that the picture in the bottom that has the dark brown floor and then that really high pilled carpet, that's a prime area for toes to get tripped. If we're shuffling a little bit when we're walking, if you're in a wheelchair trying to go from the hard floor to the carpet, those types of transitions can be really hard to manage. And then you can see in the picture with the all hardwood floor that there's this big wood transition between those two rooms, which also can sometimes be hard to get a mobility device. So these are things that you want to think about as time goes. These are things that are all fixable. They make floor transitions to bridge gaps between hardwood and carpet to kind of smush that carpet down a little bit and make the transition smoother. And there are ways to have those floor transitions removed through a contractor, a handyman agency, and those are things you can look at as well. Hallways and doors, moving right along. In your hallways, again, you see the word referring to clutter, removing items from the floor to reduce any tripping hazard. Keep an eye, that's throw rugs again, on any carpet runners that are in there. And then you want to look at the width of the hallway. I've been in some homes that have some really narrow hallways where if you needed a walker, you'd almost have to turn yourself sideways. Also keep an eye out on, furniture that you may have in your hallway. Do you have really ornate decorative hutches or sidebars or end tables with fancy lamps on them that you're finding that you have to navigate your way around to go down the hallway? And if it's a high traffic hallway, you may want to think about moving those to a different location of the house where they may not be in the main walking path. And doorways. Are your doorways wide enough for the use of a mobility device if you needed to? Could you get into the main powder room on the main level of your floor with the doorway? Is it too narrow? Ideal width of the doorway is 36 inches wide. That's the standard ADA recommendation. But if you live in an older home that's older than, I want to say, once you hit like 1950s and under, there's some really, really narrow doorways in those homes. So things to keep an eye on. If you are planning ahead with hallways and doors, these are some things to think about. Look at the type of doorknobs that you have. Over time, if we either have arthritis in our hands or if we have some tremors and you have a standard knob style door, those over time can be hard to get a grasp on to turn those if we have some trouble with grip strength or coordination. So lever doors can often be easier to operate over time. So if you're thinking of switching at your doorknobs, think about what type you're using. Which way do the doors open? I've been in so many bathrooms where there's a small powder room and the door opens into the bathroom. And if I have a walker, I now can't sit on the toilet because the door is in front of the toilet and now I can't close the door. So which way are your doors opening and closing? And is that going to create a problem? You can think about using pocket doors, or on the bottom you see that sliding barn door. If doors opening or closing in or out of an entryway is going to be a problem. There have been some cases where in laundry rooms and closets, I've actually had people just take the door completely off. We put up a tension rod or a curtain rod and hang a really fancy, nice looking curtain. So if the door is in your way and it's in an area where it's not necessary, there are low cost solutions to those problems if it's causing trouble with you being able to get in or out safely. Again, we said 36 inches is the minimum recommended width for use of a device. This little hinge that you see in the bottom corner with that pink door, that's called a swing away door hinge. Just because your doorway is wide enough, when you open the door, you have the width of the door in the way, which actually cuts you short by about another 2.5 inches. So if you could fit through the door frame without the door, there's a special type of hinge that would make the door open so that it went behind the frame. Sorry, this is hard to explain without being in a house. But there are special hinges that you can get that let you take back that, little 2.5 inches of space if you find that you're scraping against the door going through with a device. All right, we doing okay on questions? Nothing so far? Okay. If you need me to slow down, let me know too. I get rolling here. Stairs, thinking about the stairs as we go. So again, we've talked about the stairs outside. You want to look at the stairs inside. Handrails. One, are they available? And are they on one side? Are they on both sides? If you have one side of your body that's stronger than the other, are those handrails on your strong side? But they might be on your strong side on the way up, but on the way down, they're not. So thinking about the position, and are they sturdy? If you're using your handrails and they're already kind of starting to wiggle and you're not really having to use them now, it's a great idea to go ahead and have someone just go ahead and have those secure. So that way, you can check that off your mental checklist. And does that handrail cover the entire length of the stairs? If you have stairs that go up 6 steps and you have a landing and then they go up another 6 to 8 steps, are there rails on that landing? Because a lot of times there's a gap where people are kind of holding on to the wall as they go. We want to look at clutter on the stairs. I have lots of clients who like to use their stairs to showcase either some house plants or some vases, or that becomes the catch-all for laundry that may need to go up or go down. Try your best to keep excess objects off the stairs. That's not a place that we want to catch our foot on something unexpectedly. The steps themselves, again, are they sturdy? So if there's a step that kind of feels like it's sinking under your feet, does it wobble? We need to go ahead and have that stair repaired. And what material are they made from? If you have stairs that are hardwood and you are someone who likes to walk around the house with just socks on your feet, are your feet slipping on those stairs? So we can solve that by putting on a pair of shoes, or I have plenty of people who like to be barefoot in their house. Bare feet give you traction on hard floor. If you do have carpet, is that carpet still secure? Over time on the stairs, wear and tear of carpet, sometimes that carpet can kind of start to pull loose and wrinkle. Do we need to have the carpet resecured? And then I'm going to show you an option if you have wood stairs and feel like you need a little grip. There are some low cost options for that. And here's lighting again. Are your stairs inside your house well lit? If there are burnt out bulbs, please go replace them. That's a very easy, quick fix that improves safety dramatically. We want to make sure that those stairs are well lit all the way up through the top of the stairs. So planning ahead for the stairs, again, we want to look at the positioning of the handrails. You can see at that bottom picture, there's railings that go all the way down and they cover that entire length of the landing. And we've got something to hold on to on both sides. Consider the floor surface. So if you like to walk around the house in your socks, these treads right here are available online. They're little pieces of carpet that have adhesive on the bottom. It's peel and stick it right on the stairs. It's, you know, I think it's less than $50 solution if you're finding that your stairs are slippery, to give you some traction with that carpet. They also make grip tape. I would go with the nice looking carpet squares. You can get some industrial style grip tape that you might see at the end of the sidewalk to give you some traction, but it's not going to feel very nice on your bare or your sock feet. We also want to make sure that there's room at the top and the bottom of the stairs if you ever did need a mobility device. If you're someone who uses a walker, keep one walker downstairs and one walker upstairs. So that way you're not having to have someone, you know, chase you up and down the stairs or try to lug your walker up with there. We want to make sure that you're safe in the top once you get upstairs. Okay. Moving into the kitchen, I spend an incredible amount of time in people's kitchens. Lots of people actually have falls in their kitchen because they're moving from counter to counter and carrying stuff from the pantry to the sink and going into the fridge, and they turn a little too quickly or their hands are full. So planning ahead in the kitchen can spare some injuries. We want to think about efficiency when we're in the kitchen too. So in the pantry, if you live in a retirement community, this is an issue for a lot of people, as there's not a lot of pantry space. So our pantry gets really crowded. So we're constantly having to stack and unstack things to get what we need, or things are having to go on a high shelf that we can't reach. We want to make sure that when you're organizing your kitchen, whether it's your cupboard or your pantry, that the things that you use the most are between your shoulder level and the level of your waist, not any lower than your knees. We want easy access in and out, reduce the amount of joint strain from repeated bending, avoid using a step stool if at all possible. So if this is an item that you need out of your pantry or your cupboard several times a week, that needs to live on a shelf that's lower so that you're not having to use that step stool. We want to avoid storing heavy items on a top shelf. Reduce that risk of something slipping, falling, landing on a toe, landing on a head, shoulder strain. So if you love your cast iron pot, let's not have that live, up on a top shelf or all the way down at the bottom. We'll have that live somewhere that's counter level to avoid that. Avoid overstocking your shelves if able. If there's an ancillary spot where you can put things that you can restock later to keep things less cluttered. I've spent time with people in a container store looking for different ways to take advantage of vertical space rather than, stacking things behind each other. And again, in your pantry, you want to make sure that your pantry floors are clear. So if you're having to stand on your tiptoes and bend yourself around a corner to grab something because there's things on the floor, we may want to rethink how we're organizing. Cupboards, we talked about keeping most needed items at waist level. Avoid overstacking your dishes. So if you have 12 dinner plates with the 12 salad plates on top of it, and we're constantly needing to stack and unstack, and that's something that you do on a daily basis, we may want to think about rearranging things just to make things safer, easier, and more efficient for you. Like I said, heavy items, we want to keep them at waist level. If you're someone who loves cooking and you love making big pots of soup in your 12-quart soup pan, and you need to move that from the sink to the oven, if there's a way to slide those heavy objects around the counters instead of carrying them with both hands, my philosophy is always keep one hand free if possible. So that's for things like carrying groceries and moving around your kitchen. If there's a way to slide something on a counter, walk towards it, slide it again. So that way we're avoiding carrying things heavy. In the event we ever needed to catch our balance, we want to keep one hand free. So there are some additional strategies. This would be an adaptive technique we would use in the kitchen to avoid that potential, what if my foot slid in something and I was carrying something across the kitchen. And then efficiency, just planning ahead, little things like planning ahead. If you're making something, have a mental list of everything that you need to get out of the pantry, get it all at the same time. Everything that you need in the fridge, get it all at the same time. So we're not running back and forth. A lot of the times when we're turning back and forth, some people might have a dizzy response when we're constantly moving back and forth. That's also sometimes where we might trip over our own feet if we're turning too quickly. A lot of training I do with people's houses is how to turn properly to slow ourselves down, because that's a key point too. So just making sure we're efficient in the kitchen. If you are planning ahead and you're thinking about doing a kitchen remodel, reorganizing, we want to think about access. Like I said, these modifications might not be needed now, but if you've taken care of them ahead of time, you won't have to worry about it again. So counter space is key. Maximizing the amount of available counter space, because as we age, it's nicer to be able to keep most used things, most needed things on the counter. And we also know that that's a very reachable space. You want to think about if you did need a walker or a wheelchair. If you do you have enough space to get around your kitchen with it? You want to think about the pantry layout and how you'd be able to reach things. If you're thinking of blowing out your kitchen and you want new cupboards, highly beneficial to have cupboards that pull out like a drawer instead of the door opening where you have to reach in and dig things out of the back. That way you can pull everything out, you can see everything, you're not bending or reaching. One tip if you're thinking about having a remodel to your kitchen. And then we want to make sure that your appliances are accessible. The number one complaint that I get of people who live in retirement communities is that their microwave is mounted over top of the stove with the vent, and they have bad shoulders and they can't actually reach the things out of their microwave. So we end up putting another microwave on the counter, which is why having ample counter space is key. So you want to think about the positioning of your appliances. And let's see, I'm probably going to go through the bathroom and the bedroom and then stop there. There's some additional kind of ancillary stuff that we might skip through just to make sure we have time for questions. We could spend an entire session on bathrooms and bedrooms. I will try to gloss through, but still be thorough. In your bathroom, again, look at the floors. Is it slippery? If you have bath mats on your floor, that's fine, but same rules apply as for throw rugs. We want to make sure that they're as thin as possible to get the job done and absorb that water. And we want to make sure they have a rubber backing so that they're not moving under your feet when you're going through the bathroom. Grab bars can be helpful. Some people are opposed to them. Some people love them. They make really nice looking grab bars. If you're finding that you constantly are grabbing at something to hold on to when you're getting in and out of the shower, when you're getting up and down from the toilet, it's a good sign that that's a good spot for a grab bar. We absolutely do not want to use towel racks as grab bars. If you constantly are using your towel rack to steady yourself, one day it will come off the wall. So that's a good sign to say, you know what, this towel rack is fantastic. Why not have somebody come in and just replace that with a thoroughly installed grab bar? You can continue to use it as a towel rack, but that way you know if you ever needed to use that for balance that it's steady and secure. We already talked about bath mats. Toilets, the height of your toilet makes the world of difference. I hope someone raised, 3 clients raised toilets this week. That was the number one complaint, is my knees ache every time I get up and down from the toilet. I will show you some ways to modify the height of your toilet using low-cost adaptive equipment. You can also have higher rise, either 17 or 19-inch toilets installed if you need them, or we can add rails to those to help getting up and down. And then shower chairs or benches. So they're helpful if you ever feel unsteady when you're in the shower, especially when you close your eyes to wash your hair. If you start feeling wobbly, that's a good time to have a seat if you know that your vision's going to be blocked for a period of time. Be cautious for those of you who have built-in benches. Built-in benches seem like a really nice feature, but oftentimes the built-in ones are too low. So once we sit on them, we have a hard time getting back up. And a lot of times they're really slippery. So you have to watch the material. Quick tip for those of you who use a built-in bench and it's slippery, put a wet washcloth under you before you sit down. That wet cloth adds some friction and you won't be sliding around on your bench anymore. Especially if you have a corner seat, be careful with those because they're often not deep enough. They don't give you much surface area when you're sitting down. Want to make sure that you have a sturdy and a seat that's wide enough for you to sit on. So planning ahead in your bathroom. If you're thinking about anything, please just go ahead and put in a handheld shower head. If they're not helpful when you have to sit down in the shower, they make cleaning your shower so much more efficient and easier. So if you're finding that you have to continue to be down there on the floor scrubbing, rinse the shower, handheld shower makes that easy for everybody. Here's an example of a decorative grab bar that also doubles as a shelf. They can be functional. They don't have to look like they came out of a hospital. And then thinking about, is there access to a full bathroom on the main level if you're planning ahead in terms of bathrooms? If aging in place is part of your plan, are you thinking about potentially, making sure that you have a system to get you upstairs if that's where your bedroom is, or do we have a place in our home where we can settle in downstairs? These are a couple of options to either add supports to the toilet or raise the height. this is kind of an individual decision. It would depend on what your bathroom looks like, and if you're using a mobility device or not, but ways to modify. But these would be individual recommendations. Here's a couple of examples of, here's a grab bar right next to the toilet that also doubles as the toilet paper holder. So there are lots of different options available depending on what your needs are. A few different types of shower chairs. They don't have to be your standard white. There are nice looking ones out there. There are ones that can help you get in and out of the bathtub. That's called an extended tub bench. You actually sit down on the outside of the tub and scoot yourself in, so you don't have to step over that chair ledge. And then bedroom, again, lighting. We want to make sure you can see, make sure there's a light next to your bed. One of my favorite things to install lately has been under bed lighting. It's a lighting system that is sealed with adhesive underneath your bed with a motion sensor on it. So as soon as your feet go over the bed, it kicks the under bed lighting system to light up the floor under your bed so you can see without having to fiddle with a switch. And then there's a timer, so you could set it for a 5-minute timer, a 10-minute timer, and it'll automatically turn itself off. Very low cost, like $22 on Amazon or something like that. Closet, same with the pantry, keep them clear of clutter. Make sure that you can reach everything that you need. So if you are having a hard time reaching the closet rack, it's a great time to have someone come in and see if they can lower that rack for you. I've had people switch their closets out based on what's in season. If you're, we're in the summer, we don't need winter right now. Can winter clothes get stored somewhere else, and then have family help you switch them out? When you're getting in and out of bed, please do sit at the edge of the bed for a few seconds before you stand up. A lot of people will complain that they get dizzy getting up and down from the bed. So if you allow yourself to sit for a minute, especially if you're someone who needs to get up frequently in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, if you're in the middle of the night and it's dark and you stand up and you get dizzy, you really want to make sure you're steady before you go anywhere. And then bed height. I spend a lot of time adjusting beds. If your bed height is too high, there is a risk of sliding off the edge of the bed. If you're having to use a step stool to get into bed, that's a great clue that you might want to have someone come take a look at your bed height and see what we can do to adjust that. Again, there's very low cost solutions to that. And if your bed height's too low, it may cause some strain on your back or your knees and be hard to get up from. If we're planning ahead in the bedroom, please resist the urge to go out and buy the Tempur-Pedic bed with the adjustable base. People say, I'm going to go buy this for my loved one. They're moving and this is going to be the bed that's going to be the last bed they need. Those beds are not adjustable. They're always too high, and there's nothing that we can do to fix them. If you ever needed a rail on the bed, we can't install one. Take a look at your options. The bed that this lady is sleeping in right now, that's actually a hospital bed. It doesn't look like a hospital bed, but this bed actually goes up and down, and the head goes up and down, and as do the feet. So there are several options out there. If you're looking at getting a new bed, you may as well have all the functions ready to go, because how nice would it be to just be able to set the bed height exactly where you need it? But it doesn't always have to look that way. So choosing the bed, you have to think about the height of not only the bed frame, but how high is the box spring, and then how high is the mattress. All of those things make the bed taller and taller. Reduce overcrowding. Again, we want to think about lighting and clear pathways to the bathroom. I can pause here for a question. The last pertinent one would be the living room, and we can skip mobility aids. Or I can finish with the living room, depending on how people are feeling. I want to make sure I leave time for questions. How's the group feeling? I'm going to stop the share for a second. How are we doing? The chat box is empty.
Yes. Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to come off mute.
I'm sorry, I know I just threw a whole bunch of information at you.
Yes.
No questions. Okay.
Thank you, Wendy. Okay. Anyone else maybe have questions? If not, Mattie, you can go ahead and do
I'll go ahead and finish the living room, and then at the end, what I'll do is I'll also type my contact information in the chat at the bottom. So if someone has questions, I'm full of free information. So give me a call, send me an email. I'll help you the best I can. Okay. But if you do, please feel free to pop that question in the chat. Otherwise, I'm just gonna cover this last little section here on the living room.
And I'll add your contact
Go ahead.
information.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you. With the living room, things to think about is, again, we always want to make sure there's adequate space to access all needed areas. Coffee tables are lovely in a living room, but depending on what they're made of, how sharp those corners are, and how much space there is for a coffee table, we can run into issues with those. You know, if we ever needed to use a walker or a wheelchair. Again, watch for cords. We talked about that a little bit earlier. And then again, excess furniture, making sure that we have access. Furniture height in the living room. This is a touchy subject for people. So you want to make sure that your favorite spot, your favorite chair, the chair you've been sitting in for 30 years because that's your chair, we want to make sure that it's still functioning for you. People will say, Mattie, this is my chair. Don't you touch it. There are ways to make sure that your favorite chair can remain your favorite chair. Some people will jump and say, you know, Dad, we're just going to throw your chair out and get you a lift chair. That is not always the end all solution for that. So we just want to make sure that where your favorite spot to sit is in the right spot and that you have the right supports. We'll talk about some options for that on the next slide. Not only do you want to make sure that the height of the furniture, that you can get up and down from your favorite chair, from your couch, we want to make sure that your back has support. Chairs over time develop some wear. So if we're really, really slouching in our chair and we're sinking down in it, we can end up with back pain, shoulder pain, neck pain. So we want to make sure you have some postural support. Sight lines, this is important too. If you are someone who watches TV, is your chair or your spot positioned in a way where you can see the TV without having to crane your neck to the side? If we're watching for a long period of day and our neck is out of alignment, over time we can start having some spine and joint changes with that too. So we want to think about setup. So if you are thinking about planning ahead in the living room, your favorite spot can be modified. So if you see that big black chair at the top, I've actually done this with several clients. I bring in a company who actually builds in a box under your chair as a glorified riser to your chair. So you can keep your chair. It is just now taller. It still feels like your chair, but now you can get up from it, you know, without knee pain or back pain or without too much effort. Please do not use bed risers under couches and under chairs. If you're someone who, for lack of a better word, flops in the chair, you sit down and you sit down really, really hard. If you try to use bed risers as a solution, they will tip over, especially if it's not against a wall. It doesn't usually end well. So there are sturdier options of doing that. So you can have a box built. Depending on what your chair is made of, sometimes I will just take the legs, unscrew them. I will go to the hardware store and just find a taller leg. Sometimes that's a very quick fix. We can redo the legs, you can stain them, you can do whatever you want to make them match. I've had someone, we just restuffed her cushions. The issue wasn't the chair, it was her cushion was so squishy that when she sat in it, she sank down 4 inches. We just had to take her cushion and restuff it, and she got to keep her favorite spot. Sometimes we can take a cushion and put it underneath your existing cushion. That way you still get to feel like you're in your chair, but it gave you a bit of a boost. It just depends on what your chair is made out of. The lady who is on the tan couch, this, what's this device? I think it's called a Standaroo. I've used it a couple of times. It puts armrests underneath your couch cushion. So that way you have handles to push up and down if you're a couch sitter and that one armrest isn't enough for you. Yes, lift chairs are an option. I do not recommend lift chairs for everyone. It's kind of a one-on-one thing. They're great for some things and not for others. But lift chair is not always the automatic answer to your question. And I think that was it. Where these are just different mobility aids. I will just skip to the end. Contact information is here. I'll leave this here for a second and then I'll turn the share off because I think you put that in the chat. If you have specific questions, or if you wanted a copy of that checklist and you're going through your home and you're looking, please don't hesitate to reach out and have someone come take a look. Like I said, all recommendations are helpful no matter where in life you are. You have no deficits at all. This is helpful. You have deficits. This is still helpful. Don't hesitate to have someone reach out and come do that assessment. Either the house gets assessed and also, where you are in your phase of life. So that way recommendations can be made just for you. That's where I'll probably stop talking. Any thoughts, questions?
Any questions, anyone? If not, Mattie, I can ask you a question.
Yeah.
So what's your most frequent modification that you've made?
Oh man. Most frequent modification is usually with toilets. The number of phone calls I get for people saying, Mattie, my husband can't get up from the toilet, my mom can't get up from the toilet, they're falling off the toilet. So it's either installing safety frames. I like different types for different toilets depending on what we're working with, and then also adjusting the height of toilets, because I'll go into some retirement communities and they still have the 12-inch high toilets. So finding a way to do those. So majority are trouble up and down from the toilet. So what do we do with the toilet? Bed height is another key factor. Having trouble getting out of bed, having trouble rolling side to side, my bed's too high. And I have this huge antique bed that's been in my family for 200 years. Like, we don't want to change the bed, but how can we get that lower? And there are plenty of ways to do that as well. And then showers. One thing that I did not mention is a high area of contention is when you have a bathroom or you're redoing a bathroom, everyone wants beautiful glass shower doors. I just wouldn't. I spend a lot of time taking doors off of showers. So if there's ever a thought that someone might need a shower chair or someone might need assistance with showering, once we put up glass to either slide your door or open your door, you only have access into half of that space. So if we need to put in a bench, I now can't really easily get in and out, or maybe I can sit in there, but now there's not room for my caregiver to help me. People love their glass doors, but I will say go shower rod and curtain, or I'll go into someone's house and we just pop the glass doors right off. That's a low cost modification. Sometimes I'll just say, well, I'm here, why don't I just take these glass doors off for you? And we go to Walmart and get a $3 tension rod in the shower curtain. Yes. Yeah, I would say those are the most common.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome. That's a great question. I just got a question of, does my business serve North Mecklenburg, Huntersville, Cornelius, Davidson? For someone who is looking for, consistent rehab, if we need therapy a few times a week, I have a PT who covers kind of the Huntersville area. But if someone wants a home safety assessment, then I don't mind going to those areas, but it wouldn't be something that I could get out to several times a week. We tend to stay in the Charlotte circle, but I do have a physical therapist who kind of covers Concord, North Charlotte. She can get to Huntersville. But if it were just to come out and do an assessment, then that's something that I could just arrange ahead of time to be able to get up to that area.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, if not, Mattie, thank you so much for this amazing presentation. Everyone, I will be posting the checklist on our website. So if you want access to that, you can either go through the website or ask Mattie directly.
Yes, you can send me an email.
And just in case anyone needs it, go ahead and get that contact information out of the chat box. And yeah, so thank you so much. And guys, if you have any questions, just feel free to ask me or Mattie. If you go through me, I'll forward it to Mattie. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Mattie. This presentation was lovely.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye.